Well, there was some good news yesterday in the war on terror. Another terror takedown by Somali forces this time, killing the head of al-Qaeda in East Africa. This man, Fazul Abdullah Mohammed, he's the mastermind behind the 1998 U.S. Embassy bombings in Kenya and Tanzania, and he is the third senior al-Qaeda leader to be killed in little over a month. Who's left out there, though? Are we closer to putting the final nails in the al-Qaeda coffin? Joining us now, New York Congressman Peter King. He is the chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee. Congressman, good morning.
Good morning, Jamie. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for being with us. How significant was this taking out this terrorist in particular?
This is very significant. It also really helps us even the score for the terrible attacks he's carried out against us. And it really is indicative. We are stepping up the attacks, especially now with bin Laden gone. Al-Qaeda is in somewhat of a state of disarray. They still have Zawahiri, and also Al-Awlaki in Yemen is out there. Saif al-Adil also is very powerful. He's in Iran, or he was in Iran the last we knew. He was a WMD expert. But right now they are in a state of disarray, and it's very, very important that we try to take advantage of this. Now, this doesn't mean we're going to defeat al-Qaeda, but it does mean that they're going to be definitely hurt, and they're going to have to spread themselves out, and that overall sense of command they had under bin Laden is really going to be gone, I think, if we take full advantage of this. And then we have to deal with a decentralized al-Qaeda spread around the world.
Sure, and I know it's better to know where they are than not know where they are. I thought it was interesting that this particular terrorist was taken out by Somali forces. In Pakistan, we know we went in and got Osama bin Laden without Pakistan's cooperation. Is it significant that Somalia is the one that actually got him?
Yeah, I think it's very significant. It means a lot, and it shows that there are forces in those countries that are with us, unlike in Pakistan, where they may be with us one day and against us the next day, and the government really too many times is playing both ends against the middle. And I think we have to try to rely more on indigenous forces in these countries, because these countries have to realize that al-Qaeda is as much of a threat to them as it is to us.
You mentioned Zawahiri and Al-Awlaki. Those are two names that people are beginning to be familiar with if they weren't already. And my question is, someone like Adam Gaddan, another U.S.-born, radicalized member of al-Qaeda, someone that a lot of would-be terrorists look to, as they do with Al-Awlaki in particular. What about getting someone like that? How significant a blow could that be, and do we know where he is?
No, we have ideas where these people are, and we're getting more and more intelligence all the time, more and more information all the time. Adam Gaddan obviously will be a very significant hit. Because he is an American, he is a propaganda expert for al-Qaeda. He understands Americans, he understands our way of life. And if we could get him, and there's really a traitor right there working with al-Qaeda, that would be a significant victory, also a big propaganda victory for us. I don't look upon him as any great strategist or any type of military expert, but it would certainly be a propaganda coup, and he is very helpful to them because he gives al-Qaeda insights into the American psyche.
He does. He speaks English. He loves the camera. He's made a number of videos. So let's talk about this week. You have the second of your hearings on the Hill about radicalization here on our shores, which is happening more and more. This time you'll be focusing on prison radicalization. Give us some perspective. How big an issue is that in the war on terror?
It's a significant issue. For instance, the British Home Secretary just put out a report this week where she emphasizes how prison radicalization is a major, major issue in Britain with al-Qaeda. And we find that these problems usually come to us about 2 years after they hit the British. We've already had a significant number of problems with the radicalization in the prisons. We had a case in Newburgh just 2 years ago, the Newburgh Four, where they were radicalized in prison. We had Kevin James back in California in 2005. And the witnesses we'll have a former Inspector General, the New York State Correctional Services. We'll have a prosecutor from California. We'll have a police official from California. These people will show the impact it has. We have also a problem is that there is no real way of vetting who the imams are that are in these prisons. We had an imam here in New York who actually had been convicted of murder, and yet he was serving as an imam, and he was caught smuggling razor blades into a prison. So we have to get a better vetting system for these imams and Muslim chaplains that come into the prisons. Now, I'm not saying this is a wide-ranging problem, But all you have to do is radicalize a handful of people. It only took 19 people to bring about September 11th. So there is a radicalization issue. We'll have experts showing that it's there. And I just hope that the mainstream media and the Democrats do not stay in denial the way they were during the first hearing, when they refuse to admit that there is a threat in this country. The White House itself has said that one of the biggest threats to this country right now is Al-Qaeda's attempt to radicalize in our country. And one of the reasons they are is because we've knocked off so many of them overseas that they now are focusing here in our country.
Congressman Peter King, I know you took pushback last time for the hearings, but it sounds like this is a big enough issue that you might get the cooperation you need to make a difference. Thank you for telling us about it, and always good to have you on Sunday morning.
Thank you, Jamie. I really appreciate it.
Have a great day, sir. Really mess up those travel plans. Well, they called them witch hunts back in March. Nevertheless, Congressman Peter King is launching a second round of Islamic radicalization hearings on Capitol Hill tomorrow. But emotions were running pretty high the first time around. Congressman Keith Ellison was against these hearings. He's the first Muslim American in Congress, and here he is breaking down while testifying about a Muslim 9/11 first responder.
Some people spread false rumors and speculated that he was in league with the attackers because he was a Muslim. But it was only when his remains were identified that these lies were exposed.
He is the chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee, Pete King, and he's joining us now. Congressman, good to see you.
Good morning, Jamie. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Are you targeting Muslims?
Absolutely not. What I'm targeting is violent terrorists and extremists. And by the way, Congressman Ellison, who broke down crying, he was crying about a young man who ended up getting a hero's funeral in New York City, and it was mentioned in the Patriot Act. So he received all the respect that he was certainly entitled to. I think that should be put on the record. No, what I'm talking about is violent extremists. I'm talking about jihadists. And the fact is that Al-Qaeda itself has said that it's going to recruit within the Muslim American community. That's the reality. When Robert Kennedy went after the mob, he looked at the Cosa Nostra, at the mafia. That's the reality. 99% of Muslims are outstanding Americans. But the fact is that Al-Qaeda is targeting that group, and we have to look to find out where they are and the methods they're using. And what I'm doing tomorrow is looking at the prisons, because that is a fertile area for radicalization.
Why is that?
All experts.
Why is it that prisons are fertile ground? And just to your point, we know we've taken out yet another leader overseas, and you say Al-Qaeda is now focusing more on our shores.
No, they really are, because we have really done a good job of stopping them from coming in from overseas. So Al-Qaeda is now adjusted, and it's recruiting within the United States. Now, as far as the prisons, that is literally a captive audience. And you have people there, and historically, there have been conversions to Islam, which is very good. But the fact is there are also radical imams, radical chaplains in the prisons who are converting people not just to Islam, but to radical Islam, to jihadism. And we are going to have witnesses tomorrow showing cases in California, in New York, where young men became radicalized, come out of prison, and carry out acts of terrorism. The Newburgh Four in New York just 2 years ago. We had the Kevin James case in California in 2005. The British have just put out a paper saying about the importance of prison radicalization. And it's also important to note that I'm not standing alone on this. I give the Obama administration credit. They agree that Al-Qaeda is trying to recruit among the Muslim American community. And just last week, Secretary Napolitano is setting up a task force to look into radicalization in the prisons. I can't believe why liberal groups like the New York Times and so many Democrats in Congress have locked in against this when, again, I want to work with the Obama administration. I've spoken to them on this issue. We are, I believe, working together, but it's liberal Democrats in Congress who are just, they get hysterical over this. They get hyperbolic. It's just wrong.
Okay, well, Fox News will be covering it. We'll monitor those hearings, and we'll bring in all the highlights to our viewers. We report they can decide whether or not the information will help keep us safe. Congressman Peter King, great to see you. Thank you so much.